Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Mocyk, and I'm one of the instructional designers on campus working with Theresa Gilliard-Cook and Douglas Hemphill. For those who were not part of the first session, let me give you some background information before we get started. Controlling your chaos is a saying I've said for many, many years to anyone and everyone, my colleagues, my students, friends, family. They know I say this all of the time. So, what do I mean by that? It means that while there's a lot of tasks and responsibilities that surround us all of the time, we have a few things in our power to make our lives run a bit smoother. Many times we lose track of that power just because, as I like to phrase it, life gets in the way. This is what these sessions are about. It's not a perfect science. It's just an attempt to consider ways to ease your responsibilities so you can find a better balance in how your day is spent. Every day, our email inboxes fill up. We look at our phones to find countless notifications of different sorts. It's really hard to keep track of it at times. There are some days where it feels like I'm juggling 5 devices going at me at, different capacities. But here's my reality, and maybe you can relate. Information overload usually results in work overload. I lose the ability to filter out important and or relevant information. We see this daily. Oh, let me hold on to this article over here so I can read it over the weekend. Sometimes you get back to that article, sometimes you just don't. In this session, it won't give us enough time to fix the issue, but I do plan to bring up some easy to implement ideas to assist to streamline communication, especially in the courses with students. Okay, so the goals of this session are to identify communication barriers with instructions for students, and to discuss course design ideas to streamline communication. You'll find that a lot of this stuff can be implemented in other areas too. Let's start with a very informal poll with us here, just to play along, if you don't mind. Imagine you need to change the operating system of your computer. Please share through chat your immediate thoughts on this idea of needing to read and comprehend the user manual, this really nice thick one, to accomplish this goal. Who would love that challenge? Is that something that you would enjoy? Email helped us. Yes, that's what I would do. Not a chance. Been there. Oh, yeah. Doug would like to do this for sure. Okay. So, let's see. Good to know I'm not alone with that because, yeah, that sounds like a form of punishment for me. Now, who would rather take advantage of the Staples office supply store marketing slogan and use the easy button, say that was easy, in place of reading the instruction manual and learning how to change the operating system yourself? Go ahead and share those thoughts. There you go. Send it to somebody else and do it. Yeah. Yeah. So I think based off of the first response, everybody kind of agrees that reading through that manual is a difficult task. When I was when I was looking for that last slide, I came across this article. It says the complexity of simplicity. Why was the That Was Easy campaign so effective? And this is a quote from this article. And it says, because everyone wants to make things simpler in life and in business, but we could relate this to education. Complexity is often inefficient, expensive, and rarely leads to desired results. It's definitely not customer friendly, and it elicits no emotional connection to a brand. Consumers try to avoid complicated processes, instructions, products, services, and experiences whenever possible. And this is talking, just as a consumer, but in many ways we can consider our students, consumers. So do they think this way? I don't know. I mean, I think I do know, but that's something that to consider. Now, just as a side note, when I was looking up this, that was easy. That campaign was introduced in 2005. So I thought that was a relatively new thing. To hear that it's 19 years old tells me that more time has passed than I thought. All right. So trying to tie this together, there's a learning curve to wrapping your head around complex instructions, especially if you're unfamiliar with the material. It can be overwhelming for some, if not all. All right, so Doug and I had a discussion about this presentation one day, and the conversation came up about the difference between Lego instructions and Mega Block instructions. It's actually quite interesting because when you first look at the two approaches, they're quite similar. Let's start with, oh, okay, more clarifying. The examples I'm about to show are two models of starships with somewhat comparable number of pieces and complexity, but different approaches. While I share the examples, please consider what approach each does well. Let's start with Legos. This is step 18 of the instructions. In these instructions, Lego requires you to recognize where each piece goes by comparing the new image to the previous image. So you get to look this way. However, take note, there's only 3 pieces to this step, so it's probably relatively easy to put together. Now, this is the Mega Block approach. In this set of instructions, look at number 44, and you'll see that it's clear that you take the pieces in the small box and then apply it to the larger structure. Further details about this that you'll find interesting is the Lego approach is for age 16 and older, while the Mega Block approach is age 8 years and older. Just for the record, Mega Block is spelled without the C. It's very difficult for me to write that yesterday as I'm putting this together. But anyway, the amount of time it takes to build these models would vary greatly depending on experience, level of skill, how many people are working on the model, things like that. But next slide is where things change. So Legos, take note of the blue boxes. It's just, those are baggies. They indicate bag 1, 2, and 3. And Lego provides multiple small bags that have the parts laid out to build a particular section. This is Mega Block's version. So their first step is more than likely to sort through the blocks. The image shows how all of the parts are scattered randomly through various bags. To further explain, Lego will tell you to put bag 1 together and then bag 2 together, maybe even bag 3, and then you combine those to continually add to the structure. Mega Blocks, your first step, you need to sort through the pile and then determine the best setup to keep yourself organized throughout the build, and then you can start following the instructions in the build. Both options will produce the same final result. The questions are, which option would you prefer? Which method do you view as more time efficient? Which option leaves more room for confusion? And which one best focuses on the desired outcomes? Does anyone want to share their thoughts on this?
It's Carlo. I have a question for the non-Lego informed.
Okay, That'd be me.
So if I'm understanding, the Lego are pre-sorted and then the other ones you have to sort?
So when you
Yep.
open up a bag, oh, go ahead, Doug.
Sorry, I'm the resident Lego fanatic,
I
so
figured.
that's why she told me to be here this morning. So yeah, Lego for many years, they basically say, oh, here's bag one, here's what bag one builds. Now that you're done with bag one, open bag two, do build that part, and eventually they'll plug in together. You can almost think of it as a form of chunking in terms of here's chunk one, here's chunk two, here's chunk three, and then later we'll tie it all together. Whereas, yeah, Mega Bloks, at least at the point when these models came out, was here's a whole bunch of bags that have no connection to each other or the instructions. So the most efficient way of doing it ends up being to pour them all out on a table and sort them out. And uh, let's just say that I spent a long time looking for individual pieces before I realized that sorting them was a good idea. 3,000 odd pieces is a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Yes, you're right. I didn't even think about the how many pieces were actually in there.
Carolyn, I did the Lego kits with my kids for many years, and I don't remember the bags. I wonder if that's something relatively new, maybe like in the last 5 to 10 years. But when you presented the two different approaches, I did like the Legos with this already bagged up, but I did like on the blocks the way they had they showed better how it went from the individual groupings to the large one. I thought that looked a little easier to follow.
Yeah, if you think about it as an assignment, I think you could argue that the assignment structure for Mega Bloks is better, even though the chunking for Lego might be better. But one way to consider that is also the age difference. So think about that now in the terms of complexity of an assignment. What does a freshman assignment look like? How many details are you giving versus something that's part of maybe a senior design course? How much freedom? What do you want them to recognize that's different? That said, and I may be stepping on Carrie's toes a little here, so feel free to tell me to stop. I think that there's an argument that the first one, yeah, I'm gonna stop talking. So yeah, I'm gonna hand this back to Carrie because
I
I'm
mean, no,
starting
it's
to
fine
cut
because
into her.
I know where you're going with it, so it's all there. Go ahead and finish the slide. Go for it.
Oh Lord. So well, for my purposes, in terms of the first one, it is, I think, excellent instructions, but if you think about that as an assignment, you might get into the point where you're hand holding too much or you're structuring too much where everybody's assignment is going to be the same because the instructions are so rigid. Whereas in the other one, you have higher expectations for what the student is capable of. So you may not want as much structure in the assignment because you want to see them applying their skills. Even if in the Lego model, that's simply, can you tell the difference between image 1 and 2 and figure out where the pieces go based on that? So yeah, it was actually a really interesting conversation at the end of the day because, my initial throwaway comment was simply, oh yeah, Mega Bloks or Lego instructions are better than Mega Bloks instructions, but it's amazing where random conversations can go. And yeah, KG pointed this out. Some of the points that I just made. And yeah, your last point, and I'd love to hear Carrie's thoughts on this about which about allowing students to choose their own approach. That's a really interesting idea. But ironically, all of the sets now are very structured. And I remember as a kid, you know, what do I feel like building from random blocks today? So I think KG makes a very good point that you know, too much structure does cut into creativity. At the same time, and you really need to stop me from talking here. Yeah. If you think about what Carrie's point of this was with controlling your chaos, which one is going to generate fewer questions? Which one is going to generate less confusion, and how does that affect your usage of time? So please take it back, Carrie.
Okay, I'm coming back. All right. Thank you for that great conversation. It has you thinking. You know, as Doug said, it was just a regular conversation that I'm like, wait, what? Tell me more. Tell me more. And I got a crash course on Legos and Mega Blocks in this process because it's not something I was involved in, but there is value that's relatable knowledge that would be helpful potentially in our courses. So I am on slide 18. Okay. Missing that chunking piece can change the ease of reaching that outcome. So that is something to consider. Even if the outcomes of both scenarios are the same, the process is different. And something to consider is it may not be enough to have the instructions available if you still have to draw some conclusions about what the next step should be. Not knowing what to expect could cause unnecessary stressors. So barriers in instructions and communication. As instructional designers, we see this in courses all the time. The content's all there. Students technically have what they need to complete the assignments, write the papers, learn the material. The issue is the barrier and how the information is shared with them. There is a need for well-designed courses, and then also what we're going to talk about next is the clarity of instructions. So clarity of instructions serve multiple purposes. We'll start by stating that the hope would be if the instructions are more clear and the students are able to work with them easier, it would result in less emails, direct emails from students to you. It may create a calmness in your world and their world if you don't have to wonder about that the night before a major project is due. If you'll find yourself having to respond to time-sensitive emails. Working to improve the clarity of instructions, set your course up following universal design principles, something we all benefit from. Clearing up the confusion in instructions or creating clear instructions is not something that happens overnight. There are a few things that you can do to get started in this process. First, consider the idea of chunking the instructions by criteria type. For example, if it's an essay, you may have the instructions first state what the assignment criteria is, followed by how the essay or assignment should be structured, followed by, you know, what kind of sources are approved for this essay, whatever criteria, but divide it into the different sections so that when they're looking on formatting of an assignment, it's all together in one part of the instructions. Next, apply the universal design principle that suggests using plain language in instructions. Now, I grabbed the following statement from the SUNY Oswego's digital accessibility website. Using plain, clear language means communicating so that your audience will understand things the first time they see or hear them. Text directions, assignment instructions, syllabi, general correspondence should be written at the lower secondary, middle school level. Keeping this type of content clear and concise helps readers save time by making sure they are in the correct place and know what the expectations are. Plain language helps people with cognitive disabilities, people with a high cognitive load, individuals whose primary language is not English, etc. Now, this is not to suggest that we this is not to suggest that we don't ask our students to read and analyze complex text. Content that is disciplinary, like your readings, or rather anything rather than the instructions for the assignment, can be written at the higher level. So using clear language will definitely can be helpful to students. And then also using lists. From the same website, the SUNY Oswego Digital Accessibility website, it talks about how to consider readability. If it's easier to be read in a list, use the list. And I would say instructions, this is very relevant. For example, formatting requirements for a written assignment would be easiest to read as an unordered bulleted list. When sequence matters, be sure to use an ordered numbered list. Finally, remembering back to the days of the pandemic. Now we know that teaching during the pandemic was not ideal for many. There may have been a need to clarify instructions along the way. And many use the announcement feature in Brightspace, or it was Blackboard at that time, to clarify these instructions. However, if you had 2 or 3 different needs to clarify instructions, now there's 3 announcements plus the original instruction list. So it's something to think about. Announcements do serve a purpose, but don't rely solely on the announcements to make those changes. Students will probably lose track of that information along the way. All right, so thinking down the line, here's a few suggestions for you for a long-term plan of improving these instructions. You can keep a running tally of questions from students in a Google Doc or in a folder in your email. The idea is for you to focus on the semester at hand, but when it's time to go prep the next semester, you can refer back to all those questions and add them into your course in a way that would be easier for the students to find. Another option is you could add a content item inside of Brightspace. And instead of, if the student were to email you directly, you may put the response into the content item, like next to the assignment, below the assignment, something along that line. You could date it so that the students know when the answer has been added. The idea is to streamline communication for you so you don't have to customize your emails for each of the students that are asking very similar questions. And also it would be helpful for those students that are not brave enough to ask the question or don't feel comfortable asking. And
Carrie,
then,
can I ask a question?
sure, yep.
It's
Go
Carlos.
ahead.
So as far as the content item, just so I'm understanding, for my current online class, I have an ask the question section in each module. Is that what you're referring to?
So that does work as long as you're sharing the value and telling them like this is the
Yes.
place to go.
Yes.
And so the only thing that I was wondering, because we had those set up as discussions, and that is one way to go about it. But my actual suggestion would be like the text box, the HTML, where you actually just add content. So what is it, Doug? Add new item. I think that's what it is.
It'd be add page in this case.
Add page.
Because,
okay.
Or add web page, which is now I'm mixing up language. Hang on.
Yep. So anyway, it would show up just in your content, maybe below the assignment, or you might even choose to add it into the assignment with an update at the top. Like it's something. The idea is to find a place to add, make these changes so that you don't have to customize emails back, especially if you think it's going to be something that they're going to ask again. So there's different ways to go about it. I've got to read through chat to see, but that is the concept. And if you wanted to talk about, to meet with us to discuss how that would work best for your course, we'd definitely be willing to help you with that.
All right, I think mine, as it stands right now, is more of a discussion. It works fine. The students understand that they are encouraged to ask questions that might benefit the whole group as opposed to individual questions specific to them they can email me about. And it's grown in its usage over time as long as I kept kind of
Oh, good.
reinforcing that distinction. So I just want to make sure the content item listed here, I want to make sure I was understanding.
Yep. Yep. So there's multiple ways to accomplish the goal. It's just having it in a central location, I think, is the most important.
Carrie, this
Okay.
is Tom.
Yes.
This is Tom. I try to make sure that for every assignment I post, regardless of what time it is, what kind it is, directly below it, I have any questions. So it makes it pretty clear that I'm asking, did I do a good job? Do you have any questions? And then if they don't, they can ask it then. It seems to work. Same with Carla. It's a discussion. It seems to work. One
Yep.
person, everyone can see it.
Yep. That is yes, that is definitely a very good option for that. And I guess the real point is just keeping it in a central location somehow, some way. Yep. Oh, nice. Great suggestions in the chat. Okay. So now let's talk about the syllabus. We've all seen the memes. We've all probably, well, you've all said this. It's in the syllabus. That's a fact, right? We know it's in the syllabus. You're not reading it. It's not in the syllabus, or you need to read. So I came across this article. This is a while ago, but it definitely had me laughing. There's nothing funny about it. A professor hid, okay, so when you see an article like this, you question whether students actually read the syllabus. This professor, Kenyon Wilson, hid a cash prize on campus. The hint read, free to the first two claims, locker 1, 147, combination 15, 25, 35. Students may be ineligible to make up classes, and it continued on. All students had to do was read the syllabus to find the $50 prize. There were 71 students in the course. No money was ever found. One of the students stated, this class typically is the same format every semester, so students know what to expect and don't take the time to read the syllabus like we should. So I found that kind of interesting. In the first session of the Controlling Your Chaos, What's in It for Me, we talked about how difficult it is to get to the root of some of these issues. We also talked about how these sessions, they're meant to consider how you can benefit from some of these things. So the next part is going to be suggestions for that. So is it possible that your students are considering your syllabus the same as that 1,000-page manual we talked about in the beginning of the session? Do they genuinely know how valuable this document is? Of course, one would think they'd know, but as stated, if they've taken other classes where the syllabus wasn't as valuable, the students may become lax when coming into your course. If it's important to their success, somehow, some way, it needs to be stated very loudly, some way. Demonstrating the value of the syllabus. One way is to use that course information folder concept that I'm going to show you in just a minute, but it's essentially breaking out the components of your syllabus. So when students are looking for how you will be evaluated, the information is quickly accessible without having to download the syllabus to their computer. Another option might be some type of low stakes testing, and that's an option to consider because the basic concept is to give the students the opportunity to try again. So it'd be something where you could make them require 100 in order to pass this quiz. And you can ask very pointed questions about the syllabus to demonstrate that they actually did read through it. If that's not interesting to you, maybe the conversation of the syllabus through the discussion tool or part of the getting to know you activity could be considered. But the bottom line is, if you want the students to read the syllabus, then being intentional to show the value in them learning the syllabus becomes important. Challenging the students early on and helping them understand the importance of looking for that information. Now, I know that, go ahead.
This is Tom again. I don't know if anyone else would agree that this is a good or bad thing, but I often invite the students a couple days before my online courses begin, even though it's an asynchronous course. I invite them, if they're interested, in joining me in a Zoom meeting a couple days before the class begins, where we go over the syllabus as if I were in class, and I take questions.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, and that's building some connections with the students, as long as it's not required, but if they wanted to stop in and ask those questions, that's really what it comes down to. Because, you know, when I think of an online course, a lot of times it's like you go into a classroom, a face-to-face classroom, and they start handing out, back in the day, they'd hand out papers to you. But as they're handing out papers, they're explaining the importance of these papers and why you need to have this information here. Sometimes that gets lost in online courses. It's sharing the why that they need to take the time to go through this information. So, you know, that's what we're kind of getting at is, I know that I'm speaking about the syllabus right now, but it should be noted that this concept can be applied in many different places within your course. If it's valuable for your students to know this information, then working to find ways to demonstrate that value within your course may be helpful. And actually, in the next session, the Let's Be Real, I kind of go through that a little bit. It talks about you know, having a list of the to-dos, because module at a glance, and I'll show that in a second too, but also the why it's important for you to read this chapter here, why you should do this activity, what can they possibly gain from this knowledge after completing these tasks. So it's a fine line of too much information, but also using it as a motivator to help them understand the importance of working through that material. Okay, so here's an example of the course information folder we used to have, we've used at SUNY Oswego in the past. It includes an accessible syllabus that the ID team offers to anyone, but however, it is focused on online courses. You'll notice that this is really just the syllabus divided out, but this way, if the student wants to be reminded of a particular component of the syllabus, they can easily access it. All right, so then we're going to talk a little bit quality over quantity. At the beginning of the session, we talked about how many emails we get in a day, notifications. I wanted to take a few minutes to think about the concept of quality over quantity. Reviewing your course, consider taking a look at the course materials and determine the importance of the materials. For example, if you offer examples on how to write an essay, 2 really good examples may be better than offering 10 examples for the students to view. What about other materials? Are there other materials in your course that are not relevant to the course anymore? Do you keep materials in there just in case? Consider looking at those materials and being more intentional about what you want to keep and get rid of from the course. And I know it's hard because we all like to hold on to those materials. We may need them again, but when we're thinking about information overload, being intentional with what's being shared with the students can improve learning experiences, and those improved learning experiences could ease things up for you too. Finally, looking at assessments, discussions, and the quizzes and tests, consider rethinking if that's the way to go for them. Is there a better way to assess them within the course? And that's really a case-by-case basis and something that the instructional designers can help you with. Thinking about Brightspace, here's my thoughts. Using the module at a glance, if you're not familiar with that, it's really just the idea that you're giving a list of what the students should complete throughout the module so that they can kind of view, okay, yep, I did the reading. Yes, I did the assignment. Yep, participated in the discussion. Oh, okay. Oh, I need to do the quiz still. So it's a good way to keep them organized. It's very easy to get lost in the information inside courses. So that module at a glance or module overview or whatever you'd like to call it will help in that situation. And if you're considering the design of your course, working to reduce the number of clicks or to a task or the need to go to an alternative section within the course will help students stay on task. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is if the essay criteria is in the left toolbar, the students get over there and then they forget what module the assignment was in, and then they're just wasting time going back and forth trying to figure out where they were and where they want to be. And that happens to all of us. So, trying to streamline those click paths so that the students get the information, have the information where they need it, will help them stay on task. And then we're thinking about the grade book, keeping that up to date so the students aren't emailing for updates. Online courses, I don't know about it, but keeping that up to date, preventing students asking that question, where do I stand, is definitely going to ease things for you long term, because I would think when I write custom emails to people, thinking about my tone, thinking about how it's being said, that can be time consuming. And then if faculty would like to learn more about the automates in Brightspace, where you can be notified if students are late on the work, these are just a few things to consider. If you ever want to meet with an instructional designer, we can help you with that too. All right, so then we're just kind of going to go over a little bit. The ID team now has an Innovation and Ideas website. You can find it by going to oswego.edu/innovation-ideas. And it talks about our different services of asynchronous course development support. We can do asynchronous course reviews, hybrid course development support, high flex course development support, and faculty requested consultation. So most of what we're talking about today is the faculty requested consultation, but we can help you with that. This website is in development. We're going to continue to add to it, but please know that it exists. And then we have the Brightspace Help and Support. This is available to faculty, and it's an open session on Mondays from 1 to 3. You can go and join into Zoom whenever it's convenient for you, between 1 and 3. And then also on Wednesday, it's from 10 to 12. And on Thursday, it's 1 to 3. So these, if you go to the SUNY Oswego DLE, digital learning environment, that's what I always Google. It always shows up first. SUNY Oswego DLE, it'll get you here. And that's the help and support page. And you just join in. There's no signing up, and you can ask your question. You can have us look at your Brightspace, say you tried something new and you just want us to review it quickly. This is more for Brightspace support, but it's definitely available for you, to you. Okay, and then this last slide in closing, this is a challenge. Getting them to actually listen to what you have to say or read what you have to, what you've written is a challenge, because they are already have information overload. But if there's any attempt at trying to streamline that for them, it's going to benefit both of you. It really will. So, all right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I see that there are conversations. So let's take a look. Okay. Oh, I see that Doug and Theresa have been answering back and forth. Anyone want to recap what was being said? Talking about hiding things. There you go. Thank you, Theresa, for clarifying on the module at a glance. Oh, very good.
Because of all of the different things that have gone on in the chat, that's why I said we would try to pull them out and include them in the document so that it helps with some of the suggestions that were provided within the chat.
Excellent. This has been a very good chat. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Does anyone have any questions, comments, anything else you'd like to bring up?
I see this as session 2. One thing I was wondering when I read the description is if there's any discussion on, is there a way through Brightspace or Mocyk to text our students if they, agreed to sign up for that? Like anonymously, not like back in the day I had tried Remind Me or something but the students had to sign up for it and a lot of them didn't. But I feel like that's a quick way to, get something quick out, just a real short thing.
Yeah, Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe there is an option in the notification tools, but they are personalized tools. Students have to sign up for how they want to receive their notifications. And as you pointed out, a lot of people simply don't sign up for text message notifications.
But if they did sign, are you talking about like the alerts about closings or things like that? Or is there a way for faculty to be able to originate something to their class?
No, it's purely based on what students sign up for. I can show you what it looks like real quick. So this is the notifications page for Brightspace, and you can see as the faculty member, you can say I want certain things as email, but SMS messaging, which is text messages, is something that I have to sign up for as I want it. And the reason my SMS is blocked off is that I do not have a registered mobile number. So first thing I have to do is register a mobile number. Then I can select what SMS messages that I want to get. But so far as I'm aware, this is all self-serve. And the only thing that gets pushed out is announcements and calendar notifications, which go to email by default. So.
But my number would be, masked in some way if I put my number in there, like students, I'm saying that would be anonymous. And also like if I'm going to send out a group text to the whole class, their numbers would all be anonymous as this happens.
So this is coming through Brightspace, so it should all be individual because it's opt-in. Just like when you send an email through Brightspace, it doesn't tell you the emails of the students. But again, the problem is it's opt-in, and I know there's been conversations about having a more robust texting option, but I'm not aware that they've gone anywhere because there's a lot of issues with it.
Yeah. John was talking about how Remind Slack Discord group me used by some instructors, but they are all opt-in, so they won't reach everyone. So that was kind of, you know, when I was talking about this session, the thought was to come up with some of the things that you're talking about, but that is kind of the issue at hand, is that if they're opting in, then you can't be sure that it reaches everyone. And then I have to, you know, I didn't share it as part of the presentation because I can't really call it research. However, I would like to share that I was visiting my niece, who is a student down in Charleston, South Carolina. She has a 3.9 GPA. So close. She's so angry about it. And she is going to be a PA. That's what she's going for. And she's doing very well. She's going to graduate, I don't know, whatever, coming up soon. Anyway, I saw her text messages, and she had over 9,000 unread text messages. She point blank told me that if I am not in the top 10 of the most recent text messages, she's never going to see it, nor does she care. And I was like, really? Oh, okay. And so I asked my daughter about it. My daughter's a student at Binghamton University, and I asked her about hers, and she says, oh no, that causes me anxiety. I got to read the messages. And she reads the faculty and the announcements that come in from the courses. But I talked to one of her friends, because all of these kids are all college students right now. And I asked this other one, and I said, how do you handle announcements for your course? And she says, I don't. I delete them, because whatever they have to tell me, they'll tell me inside the course. And I was like, okay, all right. So that's what got me thinking about all of this. But is that sample, you know, enough of a sample to say that all students are thinking? No, it's not. But it is something to think about. And that goes back to that whole information overload of streamlining communication, because if you give it to them from too many directions, they're not going to hear the message. So
My informal quote unquote research, asking students at various times about texting to them, is the majority of them feel their mobile phones are different than their email. They like to text back and forth to their friends. All right.
that makes
And
sense.
many of them feel it's an invasion of their privacy. I mean, they would have the option not to, but I personally have to say, I would never think of texting a student. Never think of texting. There's other ways to get a hold of them. Now, the reverse is not true. I give in my communications box, how do we communicate? I give them my cell phone. And I say, if you feel you need to text me because of the urgency of the situation, please go ahead. But but I would not be comfortable myself. That's okay, Carol, if you are, but I would not be comfortable communicating to students by text. I just think that's their own business. That's my thinking.
I just don't know how often they read their email. They need to really be reading it every couple days. And my kids, they tell me, you send me an email, I don't even check that. Everything is done on their texting.
Well, then they're not accepting their responsibility. That's their problem, not yours.
I mean, I'm teaching first semester freshmen. So
oh yeah, and that's really instilling that importance of building that in. I'm not sure, like it's something like I wanted to kind of give space for these kind of conversations to talk about, like what for the first semester students, what that would look like for them and how you could possibly get them to read those emails. Yeah. So if there's a particular case that you want us to address with you to work through, we'd be willing to A lot of times Doug, Theresa, and myself will think about something and then we come back to it and we're like, oh, that might work for you. You know, so those are services that we can offer to assist.
I mean, I don't
Yeah, well, oh,
send a
sorry.
lot of emails. I do keep it at a minimum because I know too much
Yeah.
information. So yeah.
Yep.
Well,
So
and I
it's just,
think,
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is revisiting the Easter egg idea that Carlo brought up. Although wondering, is that a $5 Dunkin' Donuts gift card or a $5 Dungeons and Dragons coupon? That said, I would probably stay away from cash rewards for a variety of reasons, but that idea of if you read my emails, you get something extra is potentially one way to have positive reinforcement on that.
Yep.
But not every email. Keep them guessing.
Yes, keep them guessing. So, all right. Well, I think we're about out of time. So that is the session, and let us know if we can be of any assistance to you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.